Hey, what's up everybody? It's Ollie from flightcomp, and today I'm going to do a minor repair how-to or a video on my Pike Precision wing. This is a F3F plane, and I have a very minor damage here to the top skin at the flap here. And what happened was that on one of my landings, the wiper got above the skin and grabbed the skin and basically crushed it and tore a chunk out. And there's also a piece of wiper missing right here. I'm not a fan of epoxy wipers because this kind of stuff always happens, and it's just a pain in the butt, honestly. So I've been thinking about how to try to fix this. A lot of guys would just leave this alone because it's really minor damage and it's not going to affect the performance at all. But I'm going to see if I can fix this quickly, or I should say easily, without too much finish work. So no sanding or painting, really, anything like that. So I came up with an idea after some brainstorming, and I'm going to try to use this piece of Mylar, which is just kind of about a 1/2 millimeter thick piece of plastic. And I'm going to basically put that on top and then put in some material from the bottom and let it dry, then peel the Mylar off and see if that gives me a nice smooth surface again without any sanding or anything needed to make it look good. So anyway, let's get started. Okay, the first thing I did was I waxed up with my trusty mold release wax. I waxed up a large area here around this break, and I've also waxed up the Mylar, this little piece of Mylar. The next thing I did was I used my Dremel to grind away some of the break area, so I got back to clean, flat surface. Some of the edges were bent down into the wing. So I'm trying to get a very flat surface, and you can just use this like a ruler like this and go across and make sure you have a fairly flat surface before we start the repair. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to spray some white spray paint onto this bit of Mylar, and then I'm going to somehow attach this Mylar to the top skin. And the idea is once we make the repair from the inside that we peel the Mylar off, and that should leave white paint in that area of the break. Alright, put some masking tape around the area that the piece of Mylar is going to go over, and this is oversized than the Mylar, so the Mylar is not going to run up onto this tape. And now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go back and run some 220 sandpaper on this edge real lightly all the way around, just to get rid of any wax that may have got in there when I waxed the wing surface. So I'm just going to go real lightly and just clean off any wax. And that's it for that. And I've put some white spray paint on this Mylar. So this is going to go like this. Obviously paint side down, and I'm just gonna let this dry for maybe another hour or so before I attempt to use it. Okay, before we move on, I've taped the flap as far down as I can get it. Obviously I had to disconnect the LDS arm there. This way I can get in from the back easier to apply the repair material. And I've cut my little tiny pieces of repair material. I got 2 pieces of carbon and 1 piece of glass. This is kind of a light weave glass, and it's going to go on first, and then 2 pieces of carbon. And I'm going to wet these out here on my bench first before I put them in the wing. So I just taped down a little piece of plastic to keep the epoxy off my bench. And then I'm going to spray some 3M77 or a contact adhesive spray, a very light mist coat on this piece of Mylar, and Then I'm going to gently apply it in this area and then I'm going to put tape on top of that to hold it down even further. Gonna have to be really ginger with all this stuff because we have wax on everything and the paint's on the wax, so if it moves it'll kind of ruin the paint, so we'll try to be really careful. Hopefully it'll come out nice. But so the next thing to do is fix the piece of Mylar over the repair area, and then wet out our material here and mix up some epoxy and wet out this material, and then we can try to go ahead and make the repair. All right, I sprayed some of the 3M77 onto the Mylar, not the wing, so onto the painted side of the Mylar. Let that tack up for about 5 minutes, and then I've pushed it onto the wing, and it seems to be holding pretty good, but just in case, I'm going to go ahead and put some masking tape over the top of this to make sure it doesn't move at all. All right, I've pre-wet out my materials and I've stacked them up. So I have the glass first, then 2 layers of carbon, and then I have some Cabosil mixed up here. Well, this is epoxy Cabosil and microblooms, and what I'm going to do is put a little bit of this in that repair area first before I apply the cloth, because I want the Cabosil to fill the sharp edges and to kind of act as a glue to help the cloth stick down. And I'm also going to fix the wiper with this because I've already put some masking tape over the area where it broke. So I'm just going to put a little dollop of the thickened epoxy there. All right, I've put a drop of the thickened epoxy in the wiper there. And this is going to be really hard to see, but I've put a thin layer of the same epoxy on the Mylar where the cloth is going to go. Yeah, basically impossible to see, but anyway, it's there, just a really thin film. And now I'm going to attempt to put the material down in there. Okay, I managed to get the material in there. You can just see the back of it sticking out. You know, I have good feelings about this one, guys. I think this repair is going to come out really well. Could be wrong. This could be a total train wreck, but we won't know until all this stuff dries up. So I'm going to basically just set this down somewhere where I can put some weight over the top of this, and we'll just let it cure for about a day. And then we can pop all this off and see if we have a decent surface under that Mylar there. So I put some of these steel plates down and some brass on top, some ballast slugs. I put the steel down just to help spread the load so we don't get any pressure points. And hopefully this is going to compress that Mylar really tight to the top skin. And let's see how it looks when it's done. All right, it's time for the moment of truth. Let's see how our repair came out. The first thing I'll do is peel off the masking tape for the wiper. Looks like we have a nice little extension built up on this. That's looking great. A little bit of sanding and that'll look really nice. Now, let's see about the Mylar repair we did. Oh, the paint kind of lifted off. Maybe I didn't let the paint dry enough because it's still kind of gummy. But the actual skin feels really good. This is going to take a little bit of cleanup work. Well, the paint was a fail, but the repair itself is pretty darn good. I think I got greedy with the paint. I didn't let it dry enough on the Mylar. I just let it dry for an hour, and it basically stayed gummy the whole time and just kind of rolled right off. But underneath the paint, I just kind of rolled it off with my finger, and then I sanded this with some 2000 grit and then hit it with some polishing compound. And this thing is totally flush and you can't feel it with your finger. So the repair itself is excellent. I think I could do this again and get the paint to work. And I really think this is a good method of fixing these top skins if your wiper smashes into them. Yeah, so yeah, just kind of think out of the box a little bit and, you know, get creative with your repairs. Man, this thing will not focus today. Anyway, there it is. And then my wiper came out really good as well. Man, this thing is just not focusing. There we go. Now the next thing I'm going to do is I drew a line on the wipers with a Sharpie, and just to prevent this from happening again, I'm actually going to sand the wipers back about 2.5 millimeters all the way across, and then I'm going to roll the edge a little bit. I'm going to sand it round instead of just having a square edge, and I'm hoping that'll stop it from coming in contact with the wiper again, or with the top skin. So let me go ahead and just sand these wipers here. Well, the repair is basically done. Like I said, the paint didn't work out so well here, but we have a absolutely flush and smooth top skin. And then what I've also done is I've done a lot of work on the wipers. I've sanded the edges of the wipers down a lot, just so that they won't ever have an opportunity to bind again. Basically just giving them more clearance. And basically what happens is you have a landing, a hard landing, or you hit something, or you don't raise your flaps, and the surface gets pushed up, you know, this way, and it gives the wipers an opportunity to ride over the skin and snag the skin when you retract your flaps. So, you know, I've always sanded my wipers on my F3J models and F5J also if they had epoxy wipers, but never done it to an F3F. And I think it's something I'm going to have to start doing now. So I've basically sanded along the whole length of the wiper. I focused on this area here because this is really where the control horn is where the pressure is going to be applied and where you're going to end up getting breaks. But I'm going to go ahead and just do the other wing too, although there's nothing wrong with it. I'm just going to preemptively sand down the wiper a little bit. And that's about it. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. Again, wasn't exactly the great success that I had hoped, but I think this is a valid method of fixing top skins. And I think if I was a little more patient and applied some of the things that I learned this time around, that I could get this down with the paint on it too. So yeah, it's cool to experiment and try new methods. This is the first time I've really tried this with the Mylar. And you know, it came out pretty well. So yeah, you guys can really apply it to any molded model, I would imagine. Alright guys, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.